Have you ever made plans to do something that you thought would be very simple, only to discover that the plans have a mind of their own and are running amok? Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I intended to do a very simple tag, the end of the year tag, which was created by Ariel Bassett a number of years ago. It only has 6 questions, and I thought I would knock one out for a very simple tag video on Tuesday. However, question number 6 had a mind of its own and really is taking over this video and is going to be the main subject of this video. But let me start with the simple tag of questions and then let question 6 do its own thing. Question number 1. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Not particularly. I am reading a few books, but they are intended to be finished by the end of this year. Question number 2. Do you have any autumn book to transition into the end of the year? I wonder if this should be winter book and not autumn book. But generally speaking, no, I don't have seasonal reads. I'm sure there are a few books set in autumn or a few books set in winter, but I don't use that as a gauge, and I never plan to read a book set in a season during that season. Question number 3. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? No. As a general rule, I don't read a lot of new releases. I kind of envy the readers who have lots of authors that they are following and they're anticipating that author's new book every year. As of now, I only have 2 authors which are on my automatic buy list. One is Tana French. She is an Irish crime writer. She just published a book earlier in 2024, so she's not due for another book until 2026, maybe 2027, because she takes her time to write her books, and they don't come out every year. The other author is William T. Vollmann. It has been a number of years since he has published a book. If I am not mistaken, his main publisher, Random House, has dropped him because he writes really long and complicated books, and his editors kept asking him to make cuts to his book, and he refused. So I don't know if William T. Vollmann will be publishing any more fiction. Too bad. I really like his books, and you'll see his name come up again in question number 6. Question number 4. What are 3 books you want to read by the end of the year? On Kindle, I'm going to be reading Frisk by Dennis Cooper. This will be a buddy read with BadIsRad. It is sort of a graphic horror-ish novel. The subject is not really horror. It's really LGBTQ+, but it involves a boy looking at photos of a mutilated body. And then I'll leave it at that. The second one I'm going to be reading is also going to be a buddy read with Gavin at Genre Books. This will be an audiobook, and it is The Fabulous Riverboat by Philip Jose Farmer. It is the second in the River World trilogy. This is set on a distant planet where everyone who has ever lived gets reborn into the prime of their life. And they are essentially immortal on this river world. And the first book featured Richard Burton, the explorer who more or less discovered the source of the Nile. Let's not get into that whys and hows of who actually discovered it. He generally gets a lot of credit for discovering it. But in this second book, the main character is going to be Mark Twain. His real name, of course, is Samuel Clemens, and he is the author of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And in this story, Mark Twain is going to have a riverboat, and he is going to be cruising down this almost endlessly long river on this alien world. I think it's going to be fantastic. The third book is going to be Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is a sort of historical fantasy about translation. She is a very popular fantasy author right now. I have not read anything by her before, so I'm looking forward to it. It's also going to be a buddy read with BadIsRad again. Question number 5. Is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? When I had made my notes for this video the other day, I had put down no, I don't think there was one. However, I was watching a video created by Gareth at Books, Songs, and Other Magic, and it was a list of a lot of other YouTubers talking about their favorite books of the year. And one of those books caught my attention. It was nominated by Criminale, and that is All the Fiends of Hell by Adam Nevill. It is a horror novel about sort of a post-apocalyptic coming of monsters and demons, something like that. But he listed it as his favorite book of the year. I also happen to have that book on my Kindle, just waiting to be read. So I moved that up a couple of notches, and I will read that in December. Maybe I will agree with Criminale, or maybe I won't. We'll just have to see what happens. Question number 6. Have you already started making reading plans for next year? This is, of course, the question that got completely out of hand. I thought it'd be a quick and easy couple of books, but after I started writing down all my plans, I noticed that I actually have a lot of plans for 2025. So the main subject of this video is going to be my reading plans for 2025. But let's see what I am going to be reading. First, my major change for 2025 is that I am not going to be participating in the BookTube prize. In the previous 3 years, I volunteered for both fiction and nonfiction, and I judged at least one category in each of those for the previous 3 years. But I've decided I'm taking a break for 2025. I want to focus on the books that I own. I want to focus on books that I want to reread. And I want to tell you about all these events and books that I am going to be reading. For my in-person book club, I'm going to be giving a brief description of what we have planned. In January, The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osmond. I think this is a cozy or cozy-esque mystery novel. In the Garden of Beasts by Erik Larsen in February. This is nonfiction. I believe this is about a zoo in Germany during World War II. March, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is a novel that features an octopus. In April, The Huntress by Kate Quinn. This is a World War II historical sort of mystery action thriller. In May, This Tender Land by William Kent Kroger. I know nothing about this book. In April, we are going to do Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling, another book that I don't know a lot about. I am going to be participating in the I'm with the Band book club. This was created by MJ at Reading This Life to help people read and celebrate banned books. Because so many books are being banned in the United States, it's important that these books get in front of readers and that we discuss them and that we not let other people decide what books we should be reading. In January, we will be reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. This will be the third time I've read this novel. It is a good book. If you want to join the band, I'm with the Band Club, I will leave a link in the description of this video. The Kurt Vonnegut Book Club. This was started with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics and a few other readers. And when I joined up, I made the suggestion that we should read all of Vonnegut's novels in publication order. So in 2025, we are going to be reading Breakfast of Champions, probably in March. In June, Slapstick. September, Jailbird, and in December, Dead-Eye Dick. I have read the first three of those Vonnegut books before, and Dead-Eye Dick is the only Kurt Vonnegut book that I have never read before. All the rest are rereads, so we will see how it goes with the Kurt Vonnegut books. If you want to join, again, my Voxer will be listed in the description of this video, and you can join us for any or all of these Kurt Vonnegut books. I have a few major projects that I am participating in 2025. The first is In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. This is something that will cover the entire year 2025 from January to December. I have a Discord group for anyone who wants to join Marcel Proust. We will be reading this in little pieces, or at least I will be. I will be reading about 12 pages per day. Other people may have slightly different schedules, and you're quite welcome to read at a different schedule. But if you want to read In Search of Lost Time in 2025, join my Discord group. The Ulysses 6 will be returning in February and March to conquer Russia. We will be reading The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. We had such a great time reading Ulysses last year. We wanted to go for another novel. And this is what we're doing. This will again be on my Discord channel. We are probably going to do 4, maybe 5 live streams discussing this book. You are welcome to join in on the live stream and listen to our discussion, or you can join again on my Discord channel. Now, this is a different translation that I'm holding up. I will probably be reading the Michael Katz translation on my Kindle, but you can read any translation for our group. You can even read the original Russian. I would really love to have a Russian speaker in that group, but hope springs eternal, and I'm not going to hold my breath until I turn blue. William T. Vollmann is one of my favorite authors. As I mentioned before, he is one of 2 authors that I will pre-order books for. But over June and July, I am going to be rereading what is perhaps his best novel. That is Fathers and Crows. It was originally published in 1990. It is historical fiction about the Jesuits and the Iroquois Indians in French-speaking Quebec during the early days. And Vollmann is rather unrelenting. He doesn't have good guys. He doesn't have bad guys. Both the Jesuits and both the Iroquois have examples of good and bad in them both. And this novel is dense and it is complicated, and that's why I want to take 2 months to read this. I have set a channel on my Discord. I may be reading this alone. I may have Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics reading this with me. But if he's busy, I'm reading this alone because this is a novel that I really want to experience a second time. I read it when it was first published, and I had taken a week off work to write my own novel, which didn't get written because I was reading this book instead. It was that good. I have a few buddy reads already scheduled for 2025. In January, it's Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I'll be reading this with Flossie at the Grape Jelly Library. She has never read this book and admitted that she was a little intimidated by its reputation, but I assured her that this is not a sex novel. This is literature. So this will be my 4th, maybe 5th time reading this since my 20s, and I'm really looking forward to it again. In January, I will be listening to the audiobook of Attic by Catherine Dunn. Catherine Dunn is more famously known for her novel Geek Love, which is one of my favorite novels of the 20th century. This is the story of a woman in a religious cult that I think sells stuff door to door. I am going to be buddy reading this with BadIsRad and Randy Ray, the literate Texan. Also in January, but maybe February, Elena Knows by Claudio Pinheiro. I will be reading this with Pat at Book Chat with Pat and some other readers who are reading the entire works of Claudio Pinheiro in English. I'm just doing this one novel, and this is essentially a mystery story about a woman investigating her daughter's death, possibly by suicide, possibly not. In February, I am also going to be reading Incubi by Edward Lee. This is a horror novel from the early 90s. Edward Lee is sort of on the early extreme horror novelist. I don't know a whole lot about this particular novel, but Edward Lee is always entertaining, usually kind of sexy, and often very gross. My buddy is again going to be BadIsRad. Lastly, let me talk about some of the BookTube events that I'm going to be participating in. In February, Holmes is Where the Heart Is, created by Jim at Mystery and Mayhem. This is about reading Sherlock Holmes stories. It can be the original Arthur Conan Doyle, or it can be pastiche fiction. In March, it's going to be March of the Mammoths. I have already set out It by Stephen King. I have a number of buddies that I'm going to be reading this with. I think BadIsRad 2 is going to be reading it. Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, I think, is there. And maybe a few other people. So if you want to join in a buddy read of It with Stephen King, by Stephen King, leave a message in the description and I will add you to the Voxer chat. In May, there is Horror Mayhem, created by the Bookish Bryants. Unfortunately, Scott passed away in 2024, but his event is going to live on. This is about reading short horror fiction. In June, there will be the Big Books of Summer, created by Sue Jackson. This is a summer-long event to read books that are longer than 400 pages. And of course, in June, there is June on the Range, created by Michael K. Vaughan. This is an event to read Westerns. In August, there is Garb-August, created by the evil mastermind Criminale. This is to read the kind of books that school teachers and parents used to disapprove of, but everyone loved reading. And it's good to read trashy books. Also in August, there is going to be Faulkner in August, created by Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics and Brian at Bookish. This year, we are going to be reading Go Down Moses. This is a collection of novellas and short stories. In September, Framed in September, created by Elizabeth at Bookins and Books. This event celebrates art in nonfiction, in fiction, and real life art. Art does not have to be paint on a canvas. Art can be live music, art can be drama, or anything that you think is art. Cimmerian September, created by Michael K. Vaughan. In its first year, this was created to read the stories of Conan by Robert E. Howard. There were 3 volumes, and in the first year, I read volume 1 of Conan. Second year, I read the 2nd volume of Conan, and this is the 3rd year where I'll be reading the 3rd volume of Conan. The rest of the people participating in Cimmerian September are probably going to be reading other stories by Robert E. Howard. I'm just a little bit late catching up with Conan. November, Dr. November, created by Mark at Book Time with Elvis. This is to celebrate reading about espionage, fiction or nonfiction. This will be the 3rd year for Dr. November. Nonfiction November, originally created and hosted by A Book Olive. She has dropped out as a host, but I do hope that Nonfiction November will live on again in 2025. October, Occult Detective October, created by MJ at Reading This Life. This will be about reading about occult detectives. Also going into its 3rd year. December, Cthulhu Christmas, for its 4th year. This is an event that I created with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, and it is an event where we encourage you to read the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft or other authors in imitation of Lovecraft and his Cthulhu mythos. Okay, those are my plans for 2025. I know other buddy reads are going to sneak into these plans. Other events are probably going to happen, and I might join them, even though I do have an awful lot of other plans to get to. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.